I'm Scott Smith, and I'm here to ramble today. So I have some notes. I will be looking that direction a few times as I took a few before I started this. I've just come out of meditation, and I'm here to talk about an agreement I made. So, one of the things that I teach and I practice is that when we receive information, so you go into, for example, you go into a visionary state, you go into a ritual, and you want to make something happen in the world. You want to manifest something, right? After you do the work, after you do the magic for that, at least I do have time to reflect on the experience and be open to the messages of the spirit or the spirits that I'm working with, to see what it is that I need to do to make that happen. So here I am. I am doing what I received, which was be around on Saturdays and share some messages. And I will be posting these on Saturdays, no matter where I'm at. And I have my phone. I can do this, and including whatever may be current in my practice, as this is a personal offering from me, Scott, to you, whoever's watching. It has nothing to do with Star Stone. It has nothing to do with any other things that I'm working on. It's just from me to you, these sort of messages that are coming through. So it might be a little bit self-reflection. It might be a little bit of channeling. It might be a little bit of reading. It could be experiential based on the experience that I'm having right now, which is often the case with me. Adjusting my camera there. So when I sat yesterday and I looked at, and this morning when I meditated, I looked at what was the most important things that I really wanted to talk about right now. And for me, the moon's void, of course, right now. I just wanted to mention that. When things are in the void, of course, I feel like messages sometimes don't hit. So that's an interesting time to deliver a message, but now is the right time. And I agreed to talk about the moon with myself when I did these recordings. The moon is void, of course, and we're about to move into Cancer, but not quite yet. We're just in that kind of drifting place where there's no astrological influence coming through that mirror gateway of the moon to us right now. So that's a very interesting time to record this message. And I really hope that the calmness of that the blanket of the quietness of the moon reaches you through this message, because there's a lot of volume in the world at the moment. So I hope that that's helpful for you. I chose Saturdays, or Saturdays chose me, or we agreed that Saturdays was the best day. I kind of feel like Saturdays is like the witch's day. It has that Saturn relation to it. And it is, for me, the end of the week, because Sunday is the start. Now, when I was in a work mind and I was in a work schedule, I was really focused on Monday being the start of the week because I had to go to an office. And so Monday was the beginning and Sunday was the end. The last Sunday, oh, hold on to every moment I had in that Sunday, because that was a day off. And the start of my week was work. And I switched that. I switched that to the astrology of the planets based on the day and, for the most part, their name of relationship to the planets, and began to see that Saturday was the end of the week and Sunday was the beginning of the week, that Saturn and the sun energies. So I started to begin my week with a Sunday as a day off. And so I didn't start my week going back to work, but I actually started my week with rest or pleasure, or doing things that I needed to do around the house, being in the sun, enjoying the weather, whatever it was that I needed to do on Sunday as the start of the week. This is the day when the sun is going to shine really into the rest of my week. So Saturdays became the roundup. right? This was my roundup day. And I'm not saying everything was about beginnings and everything was about rounding up on Saturdays and Sundays, or Sundays and Saturdays. But in general, that's the theme for me. And pinning that in my mind and bringing myself to understand that Monday wasn't the start and that Sunday was really helpful to me, especially when I was working in an office job. Now I work for me, right? Now I work for me, and I'm a professional witch, right? Like I'm a full-time magical person doing this in person around Los Angeles and online for people. So, my schedule is what I make it. But even then, even if you're making your own schedule, it's very important to have a schedule when you do things and when you don't. And so, bit of a ramble there, but I do want to put that in there. That Saturdays are important. I think I invite you to look at them differently. If you're in that, 5-day work week and you have office things to do on Monday, you have tasks and things to be accountable for on Monday, or even if you don't, right? To begin to see that shift, right? Those classical planets, that Saturn was the furthest outer, right? Was the end, right? The rings of Saturn. So Saturday became the last day. And Sunday was the start. So when you go into Sunday tomorrow, think of that as the beginning of your week. And that it can begin with rest because you're not waking up because you have to get an alarm. Maybe you do. Maybe you're a person who works in the weekend. But I'd still invite for you to look at those aspects to see how that works for you. And just give it a shot. And so for now, I'm going to work on these Saturdays as a roundup to touch on the moment, to deliver a message. These may not be as long as some of my other recordings that you may have seen on Patreon or that you might have engaged with my Reiki practices. This one's a little bit longer today because I'm explaining the process. But I'm just going to ramble and see where we go with things and do my sort of weekly roundup and check-in. So I have coffee. I invite you to get tea or coffee or whatever it is that you're having and join me. So I had a very busy week. And it's been actually a very busy couple of weeks. I started teaching the mystery school classes. Those are Temple of Witchcraft classes that I host here in Los Angeles. And I also had clients. And then I also had, with you, an eclipse to some degree. And everyone became very charged and worked up about that. Some very positively so, some very negatively so. And then my refrigerator broke in the midst of all of it. So I had a little bit of a stumble in my week as I tried to hustle, right? And hustle's not a bad word, right? It can be for me, but keep everything flowing in all of the engagements that I had because I was very engaged and I loved it. And also deal with the, kerplunk of technology as it went out and the hustle to get everything into cold spaces so it didn't go bad. I was very fortunate. My neighbor was away and her freezer was free, so I was able to save my frozen items and I put everything else in ice chests until the wonderful landlord got everything worked out for us. So that was great. So it was a very busy week for me. And then after that eclipse energy, it seemed like maybe a day or two, things really calmed down and really started to settle for me. And then I was more in cruise for the rest of the week and things started to come back into right order for me. So how do you round out your week? That was the main question that I had for this, or one of the first questions I had for this recording is how do you round out your week, and are you rounding out your week? I keep a journal. I have lots of these. This is my temporary journal. I got this from the bookstore because my regular journal that I keep, and I usually buy in 3 and 4 at a time because I write so much. I ran out of pages, and I didn't realize that I didn't have a backup, so I ran to the store to pick up more. But it's important for me to write. It's important for me to keep a record of what's happening. Not necessarily because I need to look back and read over things, but I can. And sometimes that's important to read through a journal to see sort of the trends and things that are happening. but it really helps for me to process everything that's happening in a day and in a week. So it can be a little hard if you're not someone who sits down to write, or if you have lots of judgments about that and you're writing. But I like to look at journals. It's not about performance, right? It's really not about tasks. It's really about time to listen to the parts of you that you may have ignored during the week because it's so busy or because of all of the things that might be happening for you. And even if you read a paragraph, a sentence, or 3 pages, whatever it was that you got there, you spent the time to really listen to yourself. People struggle with journal writing, like what am I supposed to write? What am I supposed to write? Like there's a to-do associated with this. But I think really the important thing with journal writing is listening to yourself and really giving. It's a very powerful space to have a pen or a pencil, a writing instrument, and a piece of paper, because this goes really back to our earliest childhood. Um, for most of us, to be able to color with crayons or these sorts of things, it really gives us permission to express from a very true space, a very true self. Not always. Sometimes we write a lot of stuff that we're processing and we're not really tapping into our deepest truth, or really our core creative self when we're writing. But it's there behind the writing, even though we may not be aware of it. But when we write this way, we really give ourselves permission to let go and to really express honestly to ourselves what's happening for us. Saturdays are a great time to do that. Saturday morning, right? Like your Saturday morning coffee, tea, whatever it is that you're having there, could be a great time to do that. Maybe you do other things. Maybe you run. Maybe you hike. Maybe whatever it is. Bring your journal. When you reach that destination, sit there and write, but put yourself in a position to sort of round that up. And I think that really embraces the portal energies of Saturn, that the rings of Saturn, these end of the week, bringing things together, look at what happened for yourself, see how you felt. I love to write I feel statements. I feel statements are very helpful to me. Like I really am a very mental, and expressive person. So I'm lots of fire and air, but I'm not a lot of earth and water. And so when I write the feelings that I have about things, or I look at just the actual physical things that happen, this really helps to ground myself out, right? Like, and really center myself, because I touch on the parts which are not necessarily what do I want to say, my first go-to expressions, because I tend to be more mental, intellectual, and fiery passionate. um, Feeling and doing really help me to ground out. So I just throw that in there. How do you round out your week, right? And how can you look at Saturday as a great way to sort of like zero out the messages that you may have had for yourself? What is it that's happening for you right now, and how do you zero that out? You do that by listening, right? You develop a practice of listening for those things. So I'm just going to look at my notes here and see what else I wrote. So um, I like to say when I'm talking about practicing, there's lots of different ways. When we're talking about practicing, this is a variety of things. Like the great tree of meditation. There's a big trunk that we call meditation, with lots of roots from where it all came from, and many branches that grow in all different directions, high and low, which are expressions of those meditations. So when we're talking about meditation, I am not talking about a meditation practice that is necessarily like a zazen. It's not a sit. It's not you're sitting cross-legged. Um, in fact, some meditation practices, that's not conducive for what we're doing, because we're running energy. We want our channels to be open, or we're moving. So whatever your meditation form is whatever your meditation form is. But I'd like to highlight a couple of things I think that are important for me. So I like to begin my meditation practices when I'm going to sort of zero out my week, when I'm going to sort of listen to my messages and getting everything out, is really tune into myself. And that sometimes is difficult. I'm a person in the world. I have feelings and experiences, and sometimes that's difficult because there have been uncomfortable things that have happened for me. And it's very easy to explore and focus on the external aspects of the world, what's happening in other places in the world, the horror of things. To zero out, can be hard because we're clinging to outrage or fear, or there's lots of things that can distract us. And we live in such a highly digitally connected world that we forget that we are in a very naturally connected world. And the naturally connected world is more magnetic, it is more feeling oriented, and is more tangible, right? And these devices that I'm recording on right here, this is more digital, right? That this is more of and depending on the platform you're working on, there's algorithms associated with it, which are helping to assist in whatever those hot button issues are and feelings are, and can fuel and funnel those into spirals for ourselves. So we just want to be careful of that. But if I want to really do this, um, to honor a Saturday and to listen to what I feel and to recenter myself so that I can begin my week on a Sunday on a good note, right? As best as I can for myself. I really want to begin by tuning into the present, and I do that with myself. So I will close my eyes, or I will soften my gaze, and I will just really focus on my breath, just the breathing in and breathing out. This can be very similar to a metta meditation in which we are just focusing on the breath. But whether we follow that prescription of meditation or not, breath is something that all living beings, at least we are doing, and we can focus on the breath because that's what's happening in the now. That's what's really happening. And that can be our only focus for a second. So I'm just very casually focusing on my inward and outward breath as a way to be present in the moment. And that becomes my most important focus, right? My most important focus is my breath. So I'm just going to be quiet, and I invite you to be quiet with me. Take a nice breath in, just a normal breath. We're not trying to deepen our breath or any of those things. If it's helpful to you to fill your lungs, then you can fill your lungs and you breathe in and you breathe out. And of course, we have lots of thoughts happening in our minds. Some people are still, some people are very busy. Some people have lots of feelings, some people are very cerebral. All of that's okay. Because in the middle of all of that busyness of whatever is happening is the breath. And you could just focus your mind on that breath, breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth is fine. Breathing in through your nose, out through your nose is fine. This is not a method in which we're trying to breathe in a certain way. We're just focusing on the breath. And I usually do this for about 1 to 3 minutes. Sometimes I might flow into 5, and it's just a way to focus on the moment because I'm focusing on myself. I could just start from there, and I can focus on what I'm feeling. If I'm doing that in my writing, which seems to be where I'm focusing on today is the writing, I might start by, even if I'm having very complex emotions right now, I might start by writing about what actually happened that I might be having complex emotions about. Not what I think happened, not what I believe someone said, not what I think their motivations are, just what are the basic fundamental things that happen. I arrived, someone said a thing, I became upset. Was there evidence of that? Or did I feel that? If I felt that, then I explore what I feel. So I might write, these are the things that occurred in my life. This is how I felt about it. And those are 2 ways for me to really sort of think about that. Later, if it's helpful, I might write out statements like what someone said, what I said, any of those things, if there was, certain levels of like drama or engagement that are happening. But ultimately, I just really like to focus on 2 things, which are what happened and how did I feel? Because I want to make it about myself and not about someone else. So I might be having feelings in the moment, or I might be focusing on things in the moment and having feelings as I'm doing my breathing. So then I can start to name how I feel, right? And these are not judgments, right? So how am I feeling right now is I feel very still and quiet. That's how I feel. So I feel still, right? I feel quiet. And I might breathe that. If it's helpful to think stillness or quiet, then you do. If it's a very charged emotion, you might breathe that a few times and then focus just back on the breath. Again, this is not a meditation instruction. This is just sort of my little way of doing things. And there are great people who have methods on this that you can look up. I'll drop a few in the links for you to check out. That might be helpful in your breathing practices. I like to also focus on the world around me. And this was a technique that I expanded upon, especially during the pandemic, with a couple of people who were having, anxiety and panic on things, which is find points in your environment. See like what's before you, what's on your left, what's on your right, what's above you, what's at your feet, what's behind you. Finding these points around us, which is actually a little shamanic and magic too. And then focusing on the breath again, which really brings us back to ourselves. Know what's before us and what's on the left and what's on the right and what's above and below and what's behind us. Just bringing these points, and then coming back to the heart, coming back to the breath. These are ways to sort of like refocus our awareness. Even if you start to focus on something, like before me is my computer and an altar, and on my left is a table, on my right is some curtains, and above me is a ceiling, which is actually a hook in it, right up there. And below me is my feet, and I'm wearing my black slippers, and I'm on a wooden floor, and my foot is on a cable for the computer that I probably want to put away later. I don't need to focus on that. And behind me is these great pieces of artwork, right? And where did I get that piece of artwork? Oh, I got that from my friend. She brought it to me when she went to that Orthodox Ukrainian church. And it's an image of the Black Madonna. Look at that. And there's some artwork from a friend. Yeah. So then we start to change our awareness, right? On the physical. We start to focus on the physical around us and the feeling, right? The physical around us and the feeling. The physical around us and the feeling and the breath. It's just a great way to center yourself, right? Then what do you write? Then what do you feel? Then where are you at? You've already engaged a very interesting practice of breathing, of attention, and then writing, right? And you focused on yourself and the world around you, and not something that's happening, 7,000 miles away, not something that's happening 300 miles away, not something that's going to happen tomorrow, on Monday, or yesterday, right? You just come back to this sort of thing because all of those things are not here. They're not here. They're only present because you are constantly bringing them up in your mind. And the way to do that is to get your mind to focus on something else, right? So that's just a way that I like to do those sorts of things. It's a very loosey-goosey way of describing it, but there it is. I really like Jack Kornfield's work, honestly, or Sharon Salzberg when it comes to those type of breathing techniques. And I'll drop a couple of things in the links, as I said before. So the last couple of things I feel like I want to talk about is, where are we feeling? Where are we at? Where is our heart? How do we bring our attention back to this place? Acknowledging our feelings. Do we feel open or do we feel closed? Are we ready for the world or not? Honoring those feelings, honoring those things, and really recognizing they are what they are, and to just be settled with that. I personally have had a lot of realization in the last week that, I recognize that I have a tendency to be a people pleaser. And I think that, as I said this to my friend who is giving me acupuncture treatments and healing work, I said to them that, in my work, this is kind of my gold standard because I do want to put myself aside. I don't want to insert myself into other people's healing experiences. Sometimes I'll bring in stories because I'm a Leo. I talk from my experience, but I don't want to make anyone else's space that I'm creating for them for the work to be about me. I want it to be about them. So to put myself aside in those situations that are work is like, yes, absolutely. I should do that because I'm in service to other people. But in all of the other regular spaces, when I'm interacting in the world around me with friends, family, or strangers, I have a tendency, because of the way my life experiences early on were shaped, to always make space for other people's, to always put myself second to that, so that other people are okay around me. And a very strong emotional response to this, and I realized that I need to not do that, right? Like I need to be more aware to put myself first, and that was super important to me. Like that was a big deal. I was like, oh yeah, like I had tears, like I had a sense of relief with that sort of experience. But regardless of where we at in our experience, when we get those messages, just like when we get the messages from spirit, when we get messages from our own heart and our consciousness, we need to honor those. So wherever we're at, when we acknowledge how we feel, we operate from that space, knowing full well that other people are not going to know that we're operating from that space, and that we don't necessarily need to tell them. We just need to act accordingly to that, right? So just act according, to how, with respect to how you feel and what you need, and be comfortable in that space. When we're in breathing spaces for those things, we can we have more self-awareness for them, and we can be aware of how we might be interacting with other people, and with respect to that, adjust ourselves so that we're not depriving ourselves of the space that we need for ourselves in any place that we go into, and also not becoming hostile or defensive because someone else doesn't recognize what we feel, because we're already honoring ourselves. The person that needs to acknowledge, generally speaking, right, I'm not talking about relationships, but even then, the person that needs to acknowledge feelings and the present moment and their world is ourselves, for ourselves first. um, so put that into your journal today. Round your week out with that message. That's how I started today as I meditated. Did a lot of light meditation today. I'm doing a very interesting study with a client who has subscribed to a meditation program. It's a very out there, new age, theosophical based meditation program that I probably may not have purchased myself, but I get to participate in because I'm assisting her with the process. And so I spent a lot of morning really connecting to myself, and to light as consciousness and breath, and integrating that into my own practice. So I feel very bright today as well. But my meditation, my closing message for today, I got this great deck of cards. I'm going to reach over here and grab it, from Joan Halifax, which is called In a Moment and a Breath. This is not an advertisement. I just love Joan Halifax, and I love her work. And I decided to use these cards today for a closing message. So I'm going to hold this one up. This was air, and this has maybe a scary message, but not really. It's being with dying because it is air, and it says, let your body settle as you reflect on these phrases. Right, so let's do that. Let's let our bodies settle as we reflect on these phrases, and just focus on the breath again. And by the sound of my voice, allow yourself to repeat these things inside yourself. May I be open to the true nature of life. May I offer gratitude to those around me. May I be grateful for this life. May all beings live and die peacefully. And so it is. And I like those statements. The true nature of life, right? Being in the present moment, being in our breath, and having gratitude, coming back to that space of that openness and welcomeness that there are things to be grateful for, including our own lives. And that last piece, that peacefulness, may that be granted to all beings in all stages of their life. I think that was really important. So, that's me. That's my Saturday. That's my Saturday service. That's my Saturday Witches service. From my journal, from whatever cards I might be using, I'm gonna start this ball rolling, and I'm gonna keep this ball rolling for my Saturdays. These will be my Saturday services. I hope you turn in. I hope you liked. If you want to connect, you can leave in the comments. That's a great place to connect. I will be watching and tending those, or wherever you may find this, right? That's probably the best way. I really hope you are doing well. I hope you have all that you need. I hope that you feel good, at least for this moment. In Reiki, we always say, because I'm a Reiki practitioner, have been for a long, long, long time. Just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will not anger. I will, just for today, do my work honestly. And just for today, I will show gratitude to my elders and teachers, and gratitude for all things. It's about being in the moment, right? It's about being here. Breathe. Enjoy the end of your week. And I hope you have a wonderful start tomorrow. Thank you for watching. This is Scott Smith. You can find everything that I do in the social links below. My website is starandstonellc.com. You can also find me on patreon.com/Scott K. Smith. The S, the K, the S are capitalized. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be.